welcome back to another episode of Data Gurus. Today's episode is a bit of a special episode. Just recently, I was invited to speak at Numerator's virtual client event, and we specifically talked about industry trends in the online space. Bob Fawson, who's head of the survey business at Numerator, kindly invited myself and John Bremer, who was a former chief research officer at the MPD group, which is now called Circana. In this episode, we talked about the growth of the REST tech platforms in our industry and the democratization of data, and specifically address the importance and the call to action for improving data quality to essentially fuel quality insights. We also talk about the importance of expertise and context when you think about insights and looking at information to drive decisions. And the last piece we talked about is the role of survey research in the future as AI continues to play a bigger role in our industry. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good content. I hope you enjoy it. Take a listen.
Please welcome Sima Vasa, founder and CEO of Infinity Squared Ventures, and John Bremer, president with Phantom 4 Solutions.
I'm so excited to share our virtual stage today with Sima and with John. John Bremer is a market research executive and industry leader with a history of combining research methodology and commercial relevance to build leading insights platforms. John has held executive roles at Harris Interactive, Compete, Toluna, and was most recently Global Chief Research Officer at Circana. John has played key roles in industry initiatives led by the Advertising Research Foundation and CASRO, the Council of American Survey Organizations, and the Insights Association, among others. He's currently president at Phantom 4 Solutions, providing on-demand support to companies needing research, data science, and analytics support. Sima Vasa is a growth-focused strategic advisor, investment banker, and entrepreneur with expertise in market research and data ecosystems. She's held research roles at IntelliQuest, later Millward Brown, IBM, and NPD, now Circana. She's founder and CEO of Infinity Squared Ventures, an organization focused on advising middle-market data and analytics company, a senior advisor with Oberon Securities, a New York investment bank, and Sima is the host of the weekly Data Gurus podcast. Most importantly, John and Sima are passionate about research and data. They continue to make industry contributions, including work we do together to advance the Industry Global Data Quality Initiative, recently formed by 7 leading industry organizations across the globe. And personally, I often turn to both Sima and John when I need to better understand the consumer insights ecosystem. And I'm certain you'll find them as insightful as I do. So let's get started, John and Sima, with a broad question. What is the state of the industry today?
Well, thanks, Bob. That was awfully kind of you. And I did want to say, just for everybody on the telecast, we sort of have this conversation almost on a weekly basis because we, as you mentioned, we serve on the steering committee of one of the components. And I did also want to put it back on you. You know, we talk to each other. So hopefully this will be fun because we do this weekly. But as for the state of the industry, it's sort of complicated. I think, you know, I've described it as the best of times and the worst of times. And by that, I mean, information is available to more people than ever before. That's one of the promises we've had for years and years and years. And, you know, it's coming to fruition. You know, the people can get answers to their questions. They can do it at a relatively cheap price. You know, it's affordable. You know, so that's wonderful. You know, that being said, there have been some side notes from things that we've actually done that aren't so great. I think, you know, I talk about this a lot. I think we've started to devalue expertise. And I mean that in a variety of different ways. One, there is the democratization where there's the do-it-yourself platforms, which are wonderful, but it's up to the companies to, you know, to sort of make sure people using that are doing good research. But at the same point, if you're like me, you get 20 LinkedIn invitations every every week from a new firm in the industry, which can be wonderful. Provides innovation, things of that nature. But I always take a look to see who's behind the firms. And too many of them, in my opinion, are leading with technology as opposed to leading with expertise. And technology is a wonderful enabler of research, but it's an enabler. At the end of the day, clients and people doing survey research, they're just looking for answers to their questions, and that's their key concern. So that's got to be at the forefront.
I hear this tension between democratizing access to data and respecting expertise when it comes to generating insights. What would you say, Sima, about the state of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I agree a lot of what John said in terms of, the more it's fantastic that I always say that the data and insights is not held hostage, right? More and more people can get access to it, which is really great. I do think context is important, and that's where the expertise comes into play. And, I don't think we hear about, quote unquote, the decisions that were made, perhaps with, quote unquote, the wrong data or the wrong perspective on the data. But really, that's like, I'm always baffled at times when we think about the amount of dollars, the decisions that Insights is really supporting, and not necessarily understanding the foundation of where that insights is coming from. And so I think there's different use cases, occasions. I'm sure a lot of the people on the call today understand basically occasion-based usage of data. And I think that's probably a place that we've already migrated to, and just understanding where is it that you absolutely cannot sacrifice the expertise versus it being good enough.
Yeah, Seema, I think that's a good point. One of the things that goes along with that is sort of proof points for the information that you're getting.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, we're the experts. A lot of the buyers are not the experts. And so they're getting numbers back on a page. And without context that you speak about, they have no choice but to believe them and to understand, to take them as given. And if they're not good, they could lead to some really bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I hate to be, because this is a great conversation, I hate to be a little bit reductive, but it feels like now we're talking about how do we get the quality of insights that's a function of both the expertise at the right level and the data itself. And so if data quality is increasingly important, and maybe I'm hearing increasingly variable, the outcomes, how should we think about quality, and how does that translate to practical advice for people buying market research?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, obviously it's critically important. Bob, you mentioned that we have this initiative with 7 other organizations. It's definitely a call for the industry to unite together to really determine what is good and what is not so good, and really help buyers understand that distinction. But I'll tell you, I think one of the reasons that it's critically important now, as even more so, technology is playing funny games, right? There's a lot of fraud that can happen in terms of being able to mimic a consumer, or being able to use technology to complete a lot of surveys. And so that piece is definitely there. The good news is, I think it's good news, that's probably an easier problem to solve, because you just combat it with technology. It's the piece that I think that we all struggle with, and that is, how do we make sure the consumers that we're interviewing and asking for feedback are truly the consumers that they say they are? So we get through all the technology stuff. Now we have a real person here. How do we ensure that that person is actually who they say they are, and they're responding in a way that's adding value, and they're giving their feedback to us? And so there's a variety of ways that we've talked about, but I'll stop there and let John add his perspective on that as well.
Well, I'm glad you have the perspective that technology can solve it all pretty quickly, because I'm not quite there yet.
Fair enough, but it's a little bit easier than actually validating that the consumer is actually who they say they are in terms of purchase behavior.
Well, let me sort of combine those two things.
Go ahead.
I think that I'm not going to age us, but we've been in the industry for a while.
Yes.
And we've seen things come and go. And for all the right reasons, we've made maneuvers and, the capacity of the industry. I go back to 99 and we're like, oh, if we're doing online, we'll survey somebody once every 30 days. And, we had all these, crazy rules that have just flown out of the window. Well, we developed technology to help us with efficiency, to help us, provide more information to people. Well, the problem is that that's a wonderful thing. And I'm not speaking ill of that, but there have been some side things that have come from that. And part of that is we've lost, it's now an open ecosystem for people who utilize those technologies, where sample goes into the ecosystem and they might know what happened for one stage or two stages, but the respondent might be in there for 28 stages. And they've lost the ability to track what's going on. So all the good intent is difficult to back up. If you can, in fact, know who the people are, if they're in a closed ecosystem, and for example, here with Numerator, they know their folks, they know what they did, which is critically important because often there are other errors that creep into surveys unintentionally. But it's sort of a combination of the technology, which is designed to do good. It really is designed to accomplish something that's good for folks, but without some additional things being added on to it, we've sort of lost control of some of it.
Yeah, and I think the other piece I'd say is that it's ever evolving. You're never there, right? There is no destination, because as technology continues to improve, for its good purposes, we evolve as well. But equally, there's bad actors, and so we have to continuously balance that.
Yeah, I like to almost think of it like the consumers who are responding to surveys are our customers or our prospective customers, and we should think of them in that way and with that mental model, and we should treat them as such. Because I think if you treat the consumers you survey like you treat your customers directly, you're going to get better data. And that's very simple things. But John, you mentioned a closed ecosystem or finding those consumers who are observing their behaviors. For shorter surveys or a more natural data collection environment. And I think there's this also kind of long versus short-term equilibrium that we're dealing with in the industry, where a lot of the efficiency technology gets us to the right people with a short-term equilibrium. But we have to treat those consumers with respect over time.
Absolutely.
And that's how we generate really powerful insights.
Yeah, I think there's also a side issue here, which has to do with survey data used to be it for everybody. If you wanted to know anything, you went out and you got surveyed. You did a survey, and costs were coming down, so you could more easily do that. I think in this day and age, there's so much data that proliferates throughout the system that survey data is absolutely the best. If we're talking about the who, what, where, when, and why, for absolutely the why, maybe the who, but for some of the, Sima brought up observational type things. There's better data if you just want to know the what. And I think there is opportunity for survey to connect all these things. But if the quality, this is why the quality initiatives are so important right now, because if the quality declines, surveys will lose relevance in some form or fashion. And so we're at a precipice. I think there's a humongous opportunity for the survey research industry. But if it's treated incorrectly, I don't think it'll ever go out of business, but I think there's some real negatives that are coming their way because there are other alternatives people have.
I do think there's a lot of discussion about AI and what's going to happen to research and insights. There's one piece that I hold hope for, and that is being able to understand the emotional connection a consumer has with a brand, an experience. That's still, we all come to this world with different experiences and different reactions. And I think survey research can play a vital role in being able to capture that and understand at a deeper layer the why, John, as you mentioned, to understand what, a purchase behavior or a particular decision that somebody might take.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's funny when, ChatGPT sort of did their marketing explosion
Yes.
earlier this year, all the discussions were, A, are we going to have a job? B, is this stuff actually correct? And I actually do fear that, because we have some pretty well-known examples of AI not giving the right answer at times. It's a wonderful thing, but people are trusting their robot overlords. So if they actually see something come out of it, they believe it. There's the lawyer who I think was using ChatGPT. There's so much AI out there, but ChatGPT just made up court cases, and he put them in, and he's now, he believed it. In fact, when they asked him to verify, he just went back to ChatGPT to verify. I think we're in danger of that.
Yeah.
So to bring us full circle, I think this is where the expertise really matters again.
It's interesting because, we're talking about surveys being used to connect data, to validate data.
Yep.
Because it's such a dynamic consumer insights ecosystem. And, in many ways, I share your optimism. All three of us have worked in this space for a very long time. And one of the most exciting things for me about being at Numerator is seeing the power of combining that behavioral data with the surveys. If the world is changing as fast or sometimes even faster than, consumer insights as an industry, how would you think about using surveys to get to the motivations behind behavior?
I mean, I think COVID has taught us a lot, right? That it's unpredictable. Like, we are having massive shifts in our world, locally, on a state level, whatever, globally. And I think the need to understand consumer sentiment, opinion, behavior, drivers is more critical than ever today, because, even think about our own personal selves. How much have we shifted in the last week to 4 weeks to 8 weeks? That plays out for consumers as well. And so I think making sure that we understand the consumer and kind of where their mindset is critically important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I love the COVID example. We had these models of how the world works, and the models just completely went out the window. So now, we've got other things coming up. The student loan, freeze is going away.
Yeah.
That was providing some good money for folks.
Yes.
So what are they going to cut back on? What are they going to do? How is their behavior going to change? I think that survey research can help get to the intent. Again, we're coming back to the whys, which it does a great job at. It provides the context. The behavior may slowly change, and you need to connect the two.
Yep.
And again, expertise can help you connect the two. But we're in a different world now where, people don't know where they want to work. Are they in an office or not? And how does that change their life? Will they change what they're doing because they're being forced to go back into the office, or are they happy to do that? There are so many examples of these things, and they've shifted buying behaviors. They've shifted just, traditional behaviors, which we thought we had down pat. We knew how to interpret, what people were doing and why they were doing it. And now that went out the window. So yet another opportunity.
Yeah. I actually think also ESG is another one. Like, people are talking about how critically important it is. And you guys will all appreciate this comment. It's the say-do ratio, right? Like, they say it's critically important, but are they actually buying products that support their vision of supporting ESG initiatives? I saw the smile, Bob.
I actually
I love this. I love everything about this discussion, because that is a perfect example of how quickly the world is changing, and how. So I would,
Bob, let me go in on that, because I think there's even more nuance there. I love the example. but people didn't always do what they were saying in the past. But sort of the relationship between what they say and do, I've seen data that suggests that's shifting at this point. So even that, which we thought we had our hands around, is different.
Yeah, I completely agree. So this has been such a wonderful conversation, and it's been fantastic to have you here, Sima and John. I'd like to end with the lightning round. As you, John, at Phantom 4 are working with businesses on their data strategy, and Sima, as you're working with founders and other companies, what one piece of advice, what's your one sentence of advice that you're giving to researchers and founders and executives?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Focus, 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 focus. There is a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Research plays a vital role in the ecosystem. Obviously, leverage technology where you can, and know that its relevance is critically important. And it's just a matter of not trying to capture all of it, but really focus on your solution, your craft, and your approach.
Yeah. As I'm talking to people about data strategy, one of the things that I talk about is it's not about survey research. It's not about POS data. It's about information.
Mm-hmm.
And think about information and how am I going to put the best data together that's going to allow me to answer the questions, get to my clients' needs, things of that nature. And then finally, I just tell them, even if not using it, use the word AI in all your promotional materials, because people want that and they'll get you more money.
Well, thank you both. We get to do this again in the future, and have a wonderful.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
Take care, Bob. Sima.
Bye. Take care, John.